Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Coffee with Cosmos DB series. Before I introduce our guest for today, a couple of announcements. If you're joining this session for the first time, this series is all about spreading the knowledge on Cosmos DB by the experts to the community. So please make sure to subscribe this channel and share with the community members who are looking to learn more about Cosmos DB. The format of this session is very simple, and it's going to be with a lot of questions, and we will keep it short for 15 to 20 minutes. If you're interested to present or have any feedback, please reach out to me. Another exciting announcement that I have for today is that we have the Cosmos DB Conf coming up in few weeks. So please register or block your calendar for 3 hours of awesome live content that we are having. With that, let me introduce our guest for today. Let me add him to the stage. Hi, Rico. How are you doing?
Hi, Saji. How are you doing?
You're doing well. So, all right. I noticed that a lot of excitement on today's topic, and Cosmos DB being a multimodal database, this topic would be very useful to customers who are already using Cosmos DB. And for those who are willing to learn about controlling access to databases, yes, we will talk about the role-based access control in Azure Cosmos DB for Mongo API in this today's topic. Yeah, Rico, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opening. That was perfect. So, hello all. My name is Rico. I joined Microsoft around 2 years ago as a support engineer. So, whenever you faced any issues with any product with Microsoft, you'll be seeing me, and I'll be here helping you to get around all the issues. I started off with Cosmos DB and then slowly expanded to several other products, mostly on the data side. Now that it's time for me to get back to Cosmos DB and Cosmos DB only, it's a really exciting product, and I really do enjoy supporting and using it.
Thanks, Rico. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Yeah, we have been working closely on daily basis on some of those customer issues, right? So, yeah, let's jump into the discussion. I would like to begin this discussion with the beginner question. So, first of all,
Mhm.
what is Cosmos DB for Mongo API?
Absolutely. Let me share my screen. I do have a deck prepared,
Sure.
and let me know if you can see it.
Yep.
Perfect. So yeah, great question. What is MongoDB? What is Cosmos DB for MongoDB? So effectively, natively at Cosmos DB, every document is stored as a JSON document, and this is a very globally distributed database system. And taking that advantage, we expanded it into multiple open source APIs. MongoDB being with one of it. So at Cosmos DB, we implement what's called a wire protocol. So the one way to think of it is to say, all right, what is a wire? Anything that's above your physical layer on the model is living on that wire, therefore a wire protocol. What we have done with this wire protocol is to say, all right, if you have existing MongoDB instance, you can migrate seamlessly into Cosmos DB and then leverage all the cool features that we offer. Let's say globally distributed, fault tolerant, and really just low latency around the globe. Now, yeah, being that, let's say, any questions?
Yep. I have one question related to that, right? I think you gave a great introduction for
Mhm.
beginners. So when we talk about database security, I mean, database security is one of the important things that customers care about and access control to their data, right? So can you elaborate more if this is supported with Cosmos DB Mongo API and show us how to set this up?
Sure, absolutely. So let's do a quick overview on what is RBAC or role-based access control. It is one way to say gain a more finely grained role-based permission access, especially useful for multi-tenant scenarios, or even you just want to have multiple people in your organization that maintains this database. And Also, you would have a way to, down the road, to audit those logs and see who had access or inappropriate access to your database. This is one way to gain, really just responsibility on your system. So now with that, let's do a quick tutorial, let's say, on how to enable this. To get it work, really, it's just 3 steps. First, we enable this RBAC feature. There are 2 ways to do it. You can programmatically doing it with Azure Shell, or there is this nice feature tab on the portal, on the Azure portal, that with 1 click, you can enable the feature. Now, next, you just need to create a user. And this is a schema with pre-filled some information. Let's break this down a little bit. So some arguments you need to pass in is, of course, your account name and then your resource group on Azure. Now, next, there is a schema that defines this user, being the ID, the username, the password, the database name, and then some custom data. So this custom data is nice to have for you to keep track of what this user does and what it's used for. Now, the mechanisms, that's your hashing algorithm, how to encrypt your password. And then finally, the roles, being a multi-tenant and user access management system, you want to define your roles. With that out of the way, let's do a quick demo, shall we?
Yep, go ahead.
So here, can you see my portal, Saji?
Yep, can see.
Great. So here I've gone ahead and created a test account called Rico Wang -mongo-RBAC. Let's click this open, and then first you want to make sure that RBAC is enabled, like we've discussed. Under Features tab, there is this RBAC control tab here, and like I said, I've gone ahead and enabled it. It might take around a minute or 2, but for the sake of our time, we can jump ahead and start creating a new user. So now what I did is I clicked on this Cloud Shell. What it effectively does is to have an already fully installed Azure Shell environment built right into your browser. And there's no prerequisites, there's no more libraries to worry about. It just works. And then we can pull out our commands like we've discussed earlier. Now, this is a piece of code that I've already prepared. Like we've just talked about, there's only 2 arguments that we need to worry about in this command. The account name, which matches with this, and then the resource group. Now, to verify a resource group, you can come over to Overview, and then the resource group will be here. Now, as for body, this is the bit that we just talked about. 1 second. Now, for ID, you need to make sure your ID is delimited by the dot. What's before it is your database name, and then what's after it is the username. Now, how do I check what are my databases? You can come over here and you can see on the collection section, I have a database and a collection called test1. So taking the database name, we can finish our database name part of our ID. And then as for the username, it's up to you really. I'll just call it Rico Reader, because in the rows, we're going to make this one as a reader. Now, the username, there's a convention here to be exact. Now, your ID, the second part of your ID has to be the username. So I'll just copy and paste this here. And then for password, for demonstration purposes, I'll just call it pass. And then the DB name is what we used before, test here. And then we'll keep this as is. We'll keep the mechanism as is. For rows, we'll just change the DB name to test. And that's it. Now I'll copy this JSON body over to my bash shell, and then finish off with the rest of the JSON body. closing it with a single quote, and let's go. So now you'll see it running. At this stage, if there's any error pops up, we've spent a lot of time improving our self-help guide and error messages. So yeah, it should be pretty straightforward. Sometimes it will throw a 400 byte request. Maybe it's because of one of the common situations I see is that the convention here wasn't being followed. So you have the first part being the DB name, and then the second part being your username. All right, great. Looks like this had gone through without any problem. So notice that there are a few things to be noticed. Custom data, this is not actually being used because it is not a quintessential field for Cosmos DB. And then the password, of course, it's hidden, right? Any questions so far, Saji?
All good. I think it looks great. Go ahead.
Perfect. All right, let's, yeah, it's all done. Now, how do we test this? Just to resonate what we have discussed before, being a wire protocol, at this point, you can use whatever client or mechanism you use to connect to a native Mongo instance. Let's say Mongo Compass is one of the popular ones. Also Studio 3T, for example. Or you just have like a Python application, Java application, whatever. Here, for demonstration purpose, I'll just use a Mongo shell. So for Mongo shell, let me bring up my shell.
Yep.
And then to invoke Mongo shell, we'll just do mongo shell.exe. Now, this is an open source, or to be more accurate, this is a toolkit that MongoDB distributes. In our purpose, this suits perfectly. So let's refresh this template here. And to connect, there are several commands or parameters that we need to change. So first of all, the authentication database. Because Cosmos DB doesn't really have an intrinsic authentication database like MongoDB, what this puts here is where your row being created. Now, recall that we created our user onto my own database called test, and this is where you're going to use.
Okay.
And then for authentication mechanism, it's just going to be the SHA-256 hashing algorithm. And then -u is just, user. And then P would be the password. And after that, you have this the rest of the connection string, which you can find on the portal at here. If you scroll down to connection strings, this is going to show you the host. And just copy this, come over here, and finish off the rest of the connection string. Any questions so far, Saji?
Yeah, I think this looks great. You explained it so well, right? I think you covered the aspect about how MongoDB, how does Cosmos DB RBAC differs from the native Mongo. But I have one more question. I think from an enterprise customer point of view, does Cosmos DB Mongo API like RBAC support the AAD integration? Because we have seen a lot of scenarios that customer want to integrate with, AAD.
That's a wonderful question. So one of the strongest suits that we offer is the enterprise integration, right? You have AAD that goes to Intune, and then you have a strong control over every device, every user. Unfortunately, at this point, AAD integration with Mongo RBAC is not yet available. However, it is in active development, and hopefully we'll have more information to share with you in the future. But at this point, if you really love this feature and you want to put this into active production, feel free to go over to the user voice forum at Microsoft and upvote. That should really give our engineers some energy to pursue.
Sure, sounds good. I have one more question. I think being a developer, say if I want to build apps and pay for only my usage, right? The option that I have is serverless. So uh, if I want to use RBAC with a serverless account, is it supported already?
Excellent. Yes, that is positive. So I
Okay.
actually have one of those serverless accounts. So for those who have not, had any experience with serverless, basically we have two provisioning mode. One being the your regular RUs or throughput units, and second being serverless. So serverless is particularly helpful for early development, and you don't have a full grasp on how the workload would be, and it's a way to reduce cost in development. But let's say right here, I did have already created a role-based access control with the serverless. And then again, if you navigate to the features tab, you'll see the feature item being listed here. So for any feature in general with Cosmos DB, as long as you can see it in the features tab, you can enable it. Now, with that, I can show you an exception. So I have a MongoDB account that is running version 3.2. Now, for RBAC to work, you do need any version that is above 3.2. So 3.4, 3.6, and 4.0. Now, if I go to my account that is running a Mongo 3.2 version and go under into the features tab, you will not see that feature available here.
Got it.
However, Sachi, don't you worry. We can pretty easily upgrade our MongoDB from 3.2 to a newer version. Just keep in mind this is irreversible. Once you go into the newer version, you cannot go back. But if you decide, this is a cool feature, and then your other instances are, your other MongoDB instances are already running a newer version, there really isn't a drawback from using a newer version. So you can just click on one of these buttons. You can jump from 3.2 directly to 4.2, or you can do a step-by-step upgrade to see how things goes. Let's see if I will want to go to 3.6. Again, just click on that button, and then after 5 or 10 minutes, you're running on the 3.6 version, and then you will have RBAC as a feature showing up on your features list.
That's great. I think thanks for sharing that tip. It would be useful for many who are watching this to upgrade that.
No problem. So yeah, that's pretty much I've prepared for today. Any other questions? Now it's open discussion time.
All right, let me check if there are any questions from the audience. Okay, we have one question. I am flashing it on the screen. So if I'm using serverless account in Mongo API and I'm using a test account, not a production account, if I want to increase the limit on the number of containers, is it possible?
Yeah,
I think this is one of the support case question, right?
Sounds very similar. So there's actually a quicker way to look at this. So what we do is you can look at the quota limits for Cosmos DB, and then the service quota and default limits is what we usually access or answer these questions. And then what we want to do is serverless section, right? I just Control F, and then it jumps to serverless. And here you can see the maximum RU. I think the question asked about maximum RU.
Number
is that correct?
Collections. Number of
the
collections.
Number of collections. Sorry, yeah, the number of collections. So yeah, the maximum number of collections per account for a serverless account is 100. And this is unfortunately a hard limit that we cannot raise. Now, there are some exceptions. Let's say if you do see like a number 1 or an asterisk on the upper right corner of the number, usually indicates some sort of a soft cap that we can manually raise. But for this, unfortunately, this wouldn't be the case.
Okay. Thanks, Rico. I think let's see if there are any other questions.
Or Saji, if there's anything that comes to your mind, feel free to talk about it.
Yeah, I think there was an earlier question that was asked in the chat, if I remember correctly, like, Cosmos DB being priced on the number of RUs that are consumed, right? For the developers and startups, what are the options that they have in order to try Cosmos DB?
So yeah, we at Cosmos DB we have a free tier, right? Although there are certain limitations to a free tier account, that's something we encourage our customers to try and see if Cosmos DB is an option or a viable option for them. Again, we're just going to Google it, Cosmos DB free tier. And it will take you to our public documentation on what free tier is, what it offers, and what are the limitations. I hope that answers your question.
Yep, definitely. I have one more question. So related to the topic that we discussed, right? You talked about building applications with different languages. What is a great starting point for someone who want to get started with RBAC? I know that you have already shared the documentation, but is there any sample repo or anything that you could share apart from the official documentation?
Specifically for RBAC?
Yep.
I will say, Python is a great way to get started. It depends on what kind of language or what kind of background you come from with. Let's say, any Mongo driver that will work, that comes with Python, C#, Java, and a collection of all other languages.
Thanks. Yep. I hope we answered all the questions on the chat, and I think we are on time. So yeah, thanks again for joining the show and answering and explaining about the concept and taking up all the questions. So thanks, Rico, and thanks, audience, for joining in and asking all these questions. Before I close, make sure to subscribe this channel and please do provide feedback if you want to hear about particular topic or if you want to present in this forum. We will meet again in a couple of weeks. Next time we have a fresh topic on a newly arrived capability on Cosmos DB. It's about the distributed SQL offering on Cosmos DB. We will go live with another special guest on the 22nd of this month. Make sure to join. And thanks again, Rico.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, Saji.
Bye.
Bye.